So, what was it like for your dad growing up in a Great Depression, economic turmoil, U.S.?
Well, he grew up. He was born just before the Great Depression started, and he was the youngest out of 10. So, they didn't have a whole lot, and then his mom died when he was 5. So that was probably in about 1934. So that made it more difficult. His dad was a carpenter, so there wasn't a lot of work going on during the Great Depression. So it was tough. I mean, they struggled, but he was born. That's the time frame that he was born in, so he probably didn't really know anything different than that. So, they didn't have a lot, but they got by.
You had 9 siblings growing up. I know that the age difference was 25, I think, between Joanne and Tim.
Yep.
But, so you weren't all together, but growing up in a house, not a large house, with that many siblings, what was it like?
It was good. I mean, growing up in a house like that, I shared with there were 8 boys. So there were 2 bedrooms where the 8 of us slept. So we had 4 boys in each bedroom in double beds. Most people would probably think, my God, that's nuts. But again, we grew up in that atmosphere, and we didn't know any better. We just thought that was just the way it was. But it was fun. It was always busy, but there's always people to talk to. So looking back, I wouldn't want it any other way. We weren't poor, we weren't rich, but it was good.
And out of those 9 siblings, who do you think you were closest to growing up?
Growing up as a young kid, earlier years, probably me and your Aunt Jane. She was about a year and a half older than I was, or she was a year and a half older than I am. And then as we got older, when we were younger, your Uncle John, who's 3 years older than me, used to always constantly tease me and your Aunt Jane. And then as we got older, he and I became very close in high school, and then beyond, he was the best man at my wedding. And then as we, progressed, I've become really close with, I've always been close with my family, but probably the most with Uncle John, Uncle Ray, Aunt Jane, Aunt Joanne, Uncle Terry, Uncle Mark. So I'm close with most of my family, and even Uncle Tim. I'm not extremely close with him, but we get along, and the whole family gets along with everybody. It's a good situation.
And you and Mom got married in '86.
Yeah.
How long before that did you know her? When did you meet her, and how exactly did you meet her?
I can't tell you how exactly I met her. I went to St. Ed's, which was an all-boys school. She went to St. Joseph Academy, which is an all-girls school. I met her at some point, probably during the sophomore year of high school, I'm guessing, just through going to different parties and meeting her. And, at some point, I think, the group of guys that I hung around with hung around somewhat with her group of friends. So we met in high school somewhere around that time frame, and then we started dating our freshman year of college in, like I said, it was basically 1980, after we graduated from high school, our freshman year of college.
And, okay, so out of these events, what are you trying to say?
My iPad is almost dead.
Okay, just keep it going. Doesn't matter. All right, out of these events then, do you remember where you were and how it happened? By the way, the U.S. beating the Soviets, Challenger exploding, Neil Armstrong, and 9/11 is a little out of order.
Yeah, well, Neil Armstrong, I remember as a kid, I was probably 6 years old. I remember being outside in the evening or night playing, and then my dad calling us in to say we had to watch something on television that was Neil Armstrong's stepping on the moon. At the time, I didn't realize the significance of it, but I do remember that moment in terms of being called into the house to watch that. The Challenger explosion was not long after I had gotten out of college, and I just remember that I think I'd eaten lunch somewhere downtown, and walked out to the car and started the car, and then at that point heard that the Challenger had exploded in takeoff. And the Soviets, that was 1980. I was in high school, senior year, and I just remember it was a Friday night, and I was out with friends driving around, and I think the game was on the radio, and we heard it announced on the radio that the U.S. had beat the Soviets. So that was pretty exciting. Just, you know, a lot of people honking their horns and stuff like that. I'm trying to think what else. I mean, there was the Columbia space station, not space station, but space shuttle exploding. That was before a basketball game at St. Bernadette's on a Saturday morning. I remember seeing that on TV. I think Jill was playing basketball, but that's probably going back, I forget what year that was, but that's got to be 12 years ago, 13 years ago, something like that.
I never even asked you. Well, I know that Mom was home when 9/11 happened. I know I was home because I was home in kindergarten. I remember walking in, but I'd never asked you where you even were. What was going on with you? When you found out?
Going down to make a sales call in Worcester, Ohio, and I was actually listening to CDs in the radio. I wasn't listening in the car. I wasn't listening to the radio. So when I actually went to go make my first call, I had no idea this was 9 o'clock, 9:15 in the morning. Didn't know what was going on. Went in to make the first call, and I had an appointment with the guy. Receptionist said, "Okay, hang on," but he never came out. And finally, she came out and said, "He's not going to be able to see you." I said, "Okay," and then went back to my car and turned the radio on, and that's when I found out that a plane had crashed into the first World Trade Center, and then as driving, the second one hit, and at that point, I turned around and I came home. I canceled the rest of my appointments and came home and listened to what was going on as I drove home from Worcester.
Thank you, and I'm sorry about the time of day it is.
It's all right. My pleasure.
You can watch Cowboys versus Aliens
Thanks.
now. Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Stay in school.